Hey, I'm Ryan Giffen. I'm your host of Beyond Speaking, and with me today is Clint Pulver.
What is up, buddy?
Clint Pulver, how are you doing?
I'm good.
All right, hot start. We're starting hot. A little out of breath. We were just laughing. So we hope to bring some of that joy to you guys in this podcast. We're going to kind of talk about some things about your life, what happened before speaking, during speaking, but hopefully we'll get beyond speaking. Do you like how I did that?
That was amazing.
Did you see how I tied that in?
It was amazing.
You're welcome, listeners.
That's on camera, right? Perfect.
You're welcome, subscribers. Thank you. You know what? That was so good. You should tell someone to subscribe to our podcast. All right, here we go. Clint, man, tell us. All right, so Clint's platform here, what Clint does, the trick shot that he brings to the stage is that usually there's a large drum set on stage center at all of your events. People don't really see what's coming, but that's your gift. That's your tool that you use, and a lot of what you talk about. So let's start there. How did you get into drumming? What was that journey like? And yeah, take it from there.
Yeah, so in school, I was the kid that could never sit still.
Yeah.
I was the kid that was always moving, always tapping. Even right now, it's like grabbing something, so I can just. It just subconsciously, my right hand would start tapping, my left hand would start tapping, and obviously that's annoying to everybody else that's in the room or within the vicinity of that happening. And I got sent to the principal's office, was called the Twitcher, the Tapper, nicknamed, and everybody just sit still. And I got sent to the principal's office, and the principal was like, just sit on your hands. Can you just sit on your hands?
Oh, man.
And that worked for like 5 minutes, because then my feet would start tapping. My whole body just moved. I was the kid that just could not sit still.
Yeah.
And one day, I'll never forget, there was a teacher, and his name was Mr. Jensen. And I've been teaching for a long time. He looked at me in class, and he said, Clint, I need you to stay after class. And it was while I was tapping.
Jeez, no one wants to hear that.
Yeah, he's like, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to talk.
Ugh.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm going to get expelled as a 10-year-old. Because I've already been in trouble.
They're going to take away my hands.
Yeah. I've already had the label. And class dismissed, bell rings, completely empty room. He pulls up a big chair and a little chair. And he said, listen, I know who you are. You're the kid that everybody talks about. I know you get teased. I know you're called the Twitcher. You're the kid that's on the list. You're the kid that got sent to the principal's office.
Right.
And he said, but here's the deal. He said, I watched what you do. And every time you try to focus, you'll do something with your right hand, and then literally at the same time, you do something with your left hand, and you do it simultaneously, but different. We call that ambidextrous.
Right.
And I'm like, I have no idea what that word means. And he said,
You're like, am I in trouble?
Yeah, like what are you getting at? And he goes, can you tap your head and rub your belly at the same time? And I gave it a shot, and I could do it. And he goes, okay, now switch it. He said, then can you rub your head and then tap your belly? Now switch back. And switch back again. And literally, without thinking about it, I could just do it. I had a sense of independence in my limbs. And he sat back and he laughed a little bit, and he looked at me and he goes, I don't think you're a problem. I just think you're a drummer.
Yeah.
And it was a moment, Ryan, and I still to this day, and I didn't know the significance of that moment, but I'll never forget when he leaned back and he opened up the top drawer and he reached inside and he gave me my very first pair of drumsticks. And he was just doing, he was doing what I think so many teachers try to do, right? And just advocate for kids. Be more than just a teacher. Be an influence. Be that purposeful person that people experience their best selves when they're with you. And that's what he did. And he gave me the sticks and he goes, listen, here's the deal. I want you to just keep them in your hands. Let's see what happens. Just practice. Keep them in your hands. And it was 22 years ago, and my life changed from that moment. For 22 years, I've had the opportunity to play drums all over the world. I've been on America's Got Talent. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was going to be a pilot, had an eye disease. That kind of fell through. I ended up going to college, right? That's what you do when you don't know what to do with your life.
That's right.
You go to college. And I graduated in 2012 with a bachelor's degree and zero college debt because I had music scholarships.
Right.
And I was able to start a drum line at the university that I graduated from, and it provides 17 full tuition scholarships for drummers. And there's really cool things that have happened because of that. And I'm not telling the story to go, wow, good for you, Clint, or that's amazing, or that, what an opportunity. I'm telling this story because it was one person who saw what many would deem a limitation or a problem. He saw it as as a solution.
Yeah.
Changed my life. Helped me live a better story. And it's the power of Mr. Jensen. So I tell that story third person on stage, and then we reveal the drums.
Right.
And I sit down and we just rock the house for 6 or 7 minutes, and it gives people the chance to see what influence can look like.
Right.
Because it's one thing to talk about it, right? It's one thing to train about it. Or teachers, you know, they're with a kid and they have that moment. We've all had those moments with great educators or a great leader or a great boss. But sometimes, you know, people move on or they graduate or they go to a different, and you don't always see the ramifications and the goodness that one decision at the right place at the right time and how that impacted somebody. But just because you don't see it doesn't mean that it doesn't matter. And you never forget the good ones. You never forget the good teachers. Yeah. And so it's a fun message to share.
So one of the cool things I love about your story too is that you spent a lot of time working as undercover, and not undercover FBI or anything, but you probably got maybe a little bit more done in your undercover work than maybe an undercover FBI could have gotten done. So tell us a little bit about that undercover project that you did and where that all stemmed from.
Yeah, I was in New York City, and we were at a mastermind group. We're meeting with a bunch of other, you know, CEOs talking business, and this one particular CEO, we're in his flagship store in the city, and he's talking about how they're changing to meet the demands of the marketplace. And I asked him, I said, so what about your management style? Have you changed how you manage employees today versus how you managed employees 20 years ago? Mm-hmm. And he fired back without even thinking about it and said, no. Not at all. He said, The way I manage today is the same way I managed 20 years ago.
Thinking consistency is the best.
Yeah, and no need to change. Right. And I thought that, you know, it was a strong response. And I said, interesting. And we're in his store, and I remember looking around, and there's employees. And I thought to myself, I said, I wonder if they would say the same thing. Right. I wonder if they would think that how wonderful and great you feel, you know, the strategy is, if they would feel that same kind of feeling. And so I literally asked them. And I am a millennial. And I remember that day I had like a backwards hat on and my Nikes, my joggers. And we had like 30 minutes to kill. And I went up and I just asked 6 of his employees. And I just simply said, what's it like to work here? And tell me about the management. And do you see yourself working here long term? Do you recommend it? And at the end of the conversation, 5.
And they didn't know who you were at that time?
No idea. No. I was just simply curious.
Right.
Thinking about maybe applying, right? Or, you know, I'm just curious about the job. What's it like?
That's killer.
And it was interesting because they told me everything. Because I wasn't a boss. I wasn't a part of the store. I wasn't a survey. I was just another millennial. And at the end of the conversation, 5 out of the 6 of the employees said they would be gone and not working for this guy and his store in less than 3.5 months. They had already applied to another location. They had already accepted jobs, or they were currently looking for a new opportunity.
Oh, wow. 5
out of the 6. And I just said, man, instead of like, you know, frustration at the boss, it was more, I thought, how helpful would it be if he could hear this?
Right.
And that was it. That's what started the Undercover Millennial program. And I said, man, what a valuable resource that would help CEOs, executives, managers to understand their people better. Mm-hmm. And so for the last 5 years, that's what we've done. And we've worked with 180 different organizations, and we've interviewed over 10,000 employees undercover.
Wow.
And I feel like we've gathered the most real and authentic data on what works and what doesn't when it comes to retention, on how to build loyalty. Because that was the cool part of the whole undercover piece. Is not when an employee was ticked off at their job or not happy with their manager. The cool part was when an employee would say, I love it here. Mm-hmm. And I'd ask, so what's your management? I love my manager. Like, Susie, you got to meet Susie. Mm-hmm. Susie, come here. And they'd say, you got to apply. And like, they had this just sense of purpose and belonging and loyalty that was just crazy in industries that like McDonald's or retail, food and beverage, or industries where you might not consider that a full long-term career. People were just like enthralled, and they never wanted to leave. And so that we had that's how the book got started, and the book comes out next fall. And I titled the book "I Love It Here," because that was the response that was so magical. And then how great leaders create organizations their people never want to leave. And it's just compiled of all of the solution-based research on how leaders can replicate and create that kind of a culture for their people.
That's incredible. So let's talk a little bit about the book then. That's going to be kind of a huge piece that you're going to be putting. You've been stacking a lot of pieces of blocks together to, build. That's a huge showcase piece, man. Tell me about that. Is that exciting? Has that been a dream of yours to write a book, or?
It was super overwhelming, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of data, the time, and I want it to be done really well. And there's some really cool actionable principles that just work. And it's not just my book. I feel like it's a book for the people. Like, it's a book for the employees, because it's written by the employees.
Yeah, it's their voice.
It's their experience. It's their voice, and how they viewed a great workplace. And that's the difference, I think. It's not a leadership book written by a leadership guru. It's a leadership book written by the people. And so it was really fun. And we're still working on it. It's still a process.
What would you say the number one piece of advice to a millennial or a Gen Z or Gen Y or whatever, the generation coming out of college or moving into the workforce, what would you say the number one piece of advice would be to them on either finding the right job or being in the right mindset, or, there's the pursue your passions, but, also, do it, what kind of advice would you give to that?
Yeah, I think first off, number one, I would say create what I call your board of mentors. Like, if you look at any, successful, significant organization, most organizations have like a board of directors.
Right.
And it's a group of people that company has selected that are experts and have experience and are extraordinary in some way, shape, or form, that when that company has an important decision, they take it to the board of directors. And I think the same for young people. They should be willing to do whatever it takes to associate with extraordinary people. If there's somebody that is doing what you want to do and is living a life that you want to live, do whatever it takes to associate with them. That association and connection. I still love William Damon. He did one of the largest studies of young people and found that the number one contributing factor as to how young people found purpose and significance in their life was through the association and connection with other purposeful people. And it's true, right? That association, right? Whether it's true or not, I don't know if it's ever been proven, but Jim Rohn always said you become the average of the 5 people that you associate with most. That's true. Like, if that association matters. You put a hard-to-catch horse in a field with an easy-to-catch horse, you probably end up with 2 hard-to-catch horses, right? You put a sick child in the room with a healthy child, you usually end up with 2 sick children. And so, again, the association, who are your friends? Who are you hanging with? The phrase everyone says, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. That kind of a mentality in that who you hang with and a mindset to be willing to hang with the best and the people that influence you and inspire you, it matters. And I think it helps you to design a life through what others have done versus living just a life by default. I think that's huge.
What would you then say would be the number one piece of advice that you give to managers? Now, they could be managers that are Gen X or even maybe some older, millennials, but then all the way to the baby boomers.
Yeah.
So, it's widely, a joke now. Okay, boomer. It's a punchline now.
Yeah.
So, I know that doesn't really settle well with a lot of people, or they're like, oh, that's stupid, whatever. But what would you give advice to that boomer or Gen X manager, leader, to just efficiently manage and to, have successful relationships or business relationships with those millennials? Yeah,
I think there's a difference, between management and mentorship or even leadership. And that's why I call it, create a board of mentors, not a board of bosses, not a board of directors. It is a board of mentors. And mentorship is earned. And there's something that was great when we did the undercover research, when we found a true mentor in the workplace, because they became that because they were the person that the mentee wanted to connect with. Because of who they were, because that person could connect others to their dream. If you look at any great script or movie production or even a play, there's always the mentee in the story, and then there's this mentor that shows up and helps them get to where they want to go. Right? Like Simba had Mufasa, right, Ryan? Or the genie or Aladdin had the genie. Frodo had Gandalf. Rocky had Mick. right? These cool
Yeah.
mentors that showed up and they make the story better. They were not leaders, they were mentors. They were
Yeah.
people because of their characteristics, their
Guides,
credibility,
yep.
their competence, their confidence, who they were, that helped the mentee write a better story. So, sorry, that's a long answer to your question. So if you're a manager and you've got a team of young millennials or Gen Z employees, I would advocate towards taking the role of being that mentor, being the person that connects them to their dreams. Some of the greatest mentors and the people that have meant the most to me in my life were simply people that were amazing at sparking the possibilities for me.
Right.
And all they did, like Mr. Jensen, for example, he did two things. He communicated my potential and my worth. That's it.
Right.
Potential and worth. The Hawthorne Institute, they just came out with a research study and they found that, and I don't know if this is true or not, but in the kids that I work with and speaking to youth, there is a struggle, maybe a rise of depression or anxiety, negativity, and they found 15 to 60,000 thoughts is what your high school student will have in one day, subconsciously.
Right.
But what they also found is that 80% of that was negative. That's like, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not cool enough, I only got 56 likes on my Instagram post, whatever. But you take 80% of negativity and then you compound that day after day after day. We just need people to believe in us. We need, not develop me, don't develop me. Just be an advocate. Be the person that communicates my potential and my worth. And I think that great leaders that learn how to spark those possibilities by creating growth opportunities, by creating opportunities where people can be recognized. How your people experience you as a manager and how they experience themselves when they're with you, it matters. And all Mr. Jensen did for me, and I've looked back at that moment and why it was so impactful, he did two things. He looked at me and he told me who I was and that I was worth something. And then second, he told me what he saw me becoming. That was it, potential and worth. And I connected to that because he believed in me when nobody else did. And I think we just need somebody to believe in us. So be that person. Be the advocate, not just the developer.